Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart here, and thank you so much for tuning in. I just recently broke the 8,000 subscription mark, and I want to thank you watching this right now. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and helping it get from just a few fish videos to something that is actually a lot of fun for me. So thank you so much, and it got me thinking. You know, early on, I had some fish mentors, some folks that I sought out, found, and started listening to a lot on YouTube, and I wanted to shout out to them, but I also wanted to find out who were the mentors for other fish keepers. So I asked a couple of my friends to go ahead and collaborate on this video, and so let's find out who helped them get going, who were their mentors early on. All right, thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get going. Let's kick off with Adam C., also known as Adam Hill, on YouTube as Adam C. Adam C., who were some of your early influences in getting into African cichlids, my friend?
Hey, what's going on YouTube? Adam C. here. Thanks to Ben for having me on today. So Ben asked if I would touch on who kind of inspired me when I started into African cichlids, leading into the hobby that I have now. So I've been keeping African cichlids for about 10 years, give or take. And like a lot of people, when I started, I started with Mbuna. I had, peacocks, some smaller haps for a couple of years, and then I got a Buccochromis notatania. That was the first predator hap that I ever had gotten, and I kind of had some trouble with it as I started. So I think I didn't have a big enough tank at the time. So I started looking around on YouTube, and I came across a channel. His name is Viren Panchal. I'll put the name across the bottom so you guys can see it. But I started following his channel pretty closely, and at that time, he had a full tank of predator haps, and not just kind of, the Buccochromis or Tyrannochromis. He had like some of the super rare ones that I hadn't heard of at the time. Really cool fish. And as I watched his channel kind of come along, he had a 220, had cool backgrounds, had all the cool fish. I really liked his channel, and from that I started kind of looking into some more of those uncommon predator haps myself, which eventually guided me to the 220 I have now and a lot of the fish that you have seen me have. But the cool part of it was I actually reached out to Viren probably a year or two after I started following his channel. And sometimes people that you respect what they do, you hope they're a cool person if you ever do reach out to him, and he was a really cool guy. He gave me some good tips. I had questions on fish, he answered them for me. He put a video out on YouTube that I specifically asked for because I wanted to see a specific fish that he had that not many other people had, and I wanted to get a good idea of how it lived and the best ways to take care of it. And he was very, very accommodating. I think that kind of guided me not only in just one way, but two ways. One was I wanted a lot of the fish that he had. So I started tracking down a lot of those fish, 7 or 8 years ago. Maybe it even hasn't been that long. It might have only been 5 or 6 years ago when I started doing like full predator haps. Before then I just had a few here and there. But also it kind of inspired me to, whenever people reached out to me for any sort of help or anything, I really tried to help as best that I could, because you never realized who was watching. If he hadn't helped me out and given me some guidance back when I had started, it probably would have discouraged me into looking into those types of fish, and who knows, what I would have done from there. I may have, not been, as excited to look into those fish. I might have stayed with what I have, or who knows, I might have been out of the hobby, by now, which happens quite a bit, unfortunately. So, if you guys are on YouTube, you like to watch YouTube videos, he still has videos on there. He doesn't currently post anymore, but he's got some really cool videos you guys should go check out. So, I want to thank Ben for having me on today, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Thank you, Adam. Adam C. Subscribe to his channel. I'll put a link below that you can actually click on, and if you're not a subscriber already. But thank you so much, Adam. So let's get an opinion on mentors early in their career from another friend of mine, Zenzo. Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. And again, I will put a link below. You can go ahead and subscribe to his channel. Both of these gentlemen post a lot of informative videos that I personally enjoy, and you might also. So Zenzo, who was an influential fish keeper and YouTuber when you first got going? Thank you so much.
Friends, how's it going? Zenzo with Tazawa Tanks. Ben, thanks for having me on your channel once again. So the question that was asked of me is, what YouTuber has influenced me in keeping African cichlids? Well, what I will say is that when I got into African cichlids, there wasn't a YouTube. In fact, when I got into African cichlids, I didn't have internet at my home. I had internet at my office at work. I think I had just gotten my first email address like 2 years prior to that. So there wasn't a whole lot of online resources for me as far as African cichlids are concerned. So I did a lot of my research in magazines and books and talking to folks at the local fish store, etc. However, I did take a long break from African cichlids. So after I was doing cichlids for a while, I stopped keeping fish for a short period of time, and then I was keeping bettas, and then I was keeping community fish, South American fish, and then got back into African cichlids a few years ago. When I got back into African cichlids, I would say that KG Tropical, so John Hudson, he was probably the most influential YouTuber for me. One of the things that attracted me to John's channel, KG Tropicals, is the fact that John was very laid back in his explanation of things, and it was very much of a kind of a layman's terms or kind of a common sense description and explanation of keeping African cichlids in the hobby. Now, there are a lot of wonderful African cichlid channels out there on YouTube, and there were a lot at that time. But for me, my preference was watching John's videos because, again, I felt like I could relate to the way that John was talking about fish. It kind of kept in line with my experience in fish keeping and some of the common sense things that I did, and I just found it very easy to follow, a very enjoyable format. So yeah, I would say that KG Tropicals was the channel that I watched when I got into African cichlids. Again.
Thank you, Zenzo. Absolutely. John was, I don't know how many hours of his videos I watched when I made the transition from discus to cichlids. He was sort of my initial cichlid guru, and I think my wife would walk by and watch me watching the videos and like, wait, what's up with this? What's up with this guy? How come you watch so many? I joined the fish cult, so. Anyway, also, of course, who wasn't influenced to some degree by Jay Wilson and all of his information and antics. I think he's the one that put me on to Sun originally. And and of course, as you probably know, my probably closest mentor and friend is has to be IFG, Evan Alexander, #HAPNATION. He helped me out in a couple circumstances. I reached out to him, and he provided immediate assistance and help, and as I'm sure the other individuals would have as well. But those three sort of stand out in my mind as the ones that were influential early on in my African cichlid keeping. Who was influential to you? Was it somebody on YouTube? Was it a fellow fish keeper? Was it somebody else, maybe a parent, maybe a local fish store owner? Who was your mentor? Tell your story below. People like to read them. We all learn from them. Thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. It is greatly appreciated. And again, thank you so much for the 8,000 subs. I'm blown away, actually, by it. It was not planned, anticipated, or expected. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.